Hey everybody, it's Bust with Battles with Bust number 525, and today we're doing battle with Teemo Kayle. And so for you regular viewers, sorry we've been so inconsistent with the content over the past 2 or 3 weeks. I got sick there for about a week and a half, and then the holiday season rolled through, taking up a bunch of time there, and I just wasn't able to do it. And so the voice is still a little scratchy, but I think we'll be able to get our sea legs back up underneath us over the course of the next 2 or 3 videos, and then be off and running very consistently over the course of the next few months. Ideal, fingers crossed. But nonetheless, so where we stand at the current meta right now, Worlds has come and gone. We may or may not be getting a balance patch in the upcoming days, and then there's going to be a open here in about 2 weeks, assuming that this page within the game client is correct. It says the next open should be on the 13th of January. And so my stance on the way that the format currently feels and the way it currently stands, there's a lot of decks that I like to call bend but don't break, right? And so if you are a football fan out there, if you watch your Kansas City Chiefs religiously week after week, they typically have what you would kind of call a bend but not break style of defense. It doesn't happen this year. It's happened in many of the years past, though, is to where you'll let the team just march their way down the field. You don't give up any big plays. You don't let any big, gigantic things happen. But once they get down to about the 30-yard line, you really start like hammering in, and then you try and force them to kick a field goal. So you'll let them do their thing a little bit. You don't let them do their thing the whole way, and you only let them try and get a minor victory as opposed to a big one. And that's what it really feels like a lot of the decks are trying to do these days in this current format, whether or not it's some kind of Elder Dragon deck. So you have Elder Dragon Nora putting a bunch of shitty units onto the board, and then around turn 6 or turn 7 it can start to pop off playing a bunch of bigger units, but it's not really doing anything to try and stop you. It's just going to give you a little bit of resistance, but not try particularly hard to shut down your plays. The same kind of thing applies to all of the Mordekaiser decks, the Mordekaiser Morgana. Being the most popular one, they're going to play some shitty blocking units in the early game. They're going to play like 1 or 2 serious removal spells over the course of the game. They're going to play their Mordekaiser on turn 7, and that's going to be frightful. And then on turn 8 or so, they're going to start doing what their deck does and just beat you from there. And so there's a few different ways that you can really kind of approach this. I feel like all of those decks are doing the same thing. None of them like it if you're going wide on the board. So they're very well tuned to say, deal with a big Morgana, deal with whatever Riven is doing, deal with a big dragon that has overwhelm. They aren't particularly well tuned to be dealing with a big wide board. And so that's one of the key things that we're going to be looking at here over the course of the next few videos, is playing decks that can develop wide boards. And then they don't particularly stop somewhat important units well, right? And so they can stop that big overwhelming dragon from dealing 10 points of damage. They can stop a big Morgana. They can potentially stop a big Mordekaiser. But if you play a lot of engine based kind of units, and so if we're playing things like Bandle City Mayor into Yordle Captain, these are all units that are kind of strong, right? If we get a whole bunch of them on the board, they're very strong. But if any individual piece of the kind of combos gets removed from the board, it's not that big of a deal. And so that's the way that I've really been trying to approach this format, is you need to be winning the game on turn 8. You need to have a wide board, and you need to have a nice variety of units that are strong, but not so super important that if your opponent kills your one important unit, you just outright lose the game. That's what you typically see out of, say, Yuumi based decks. And so that has led us in here to Teemo Kayle. This is one of the decks that we brought to the last Standard Open, I think. I think the last Standard Open that we top cut, we played this thing. I don't quite remember. I know that we brought it to one. But nonetheless, it's got a very strong Yordles package within it. Lots of that width that we're really looking for. Lots of engine-based units that are strong, but not so critical that we lose the game if they fall off the board. And then most importantly, they have this big, overwhelming way to finish off the games, be that a Winding Light or a Zolani. And so, this isn't the newest deck. This isn't the craziest thing to come and hit the field, but it is important to note that it did get 2 very big upgrades coming out of the Fates Voyage Beyond. And so those 2 cards going to be Dark Binding along with the Black Shield. Dark Binding, again, nothing new. This has been a very big format staple, the most common way to come in and deal with a gigantic, overwhelming dragon. Plays fantastically here. The big thing that we do get out of these kind of curse packages, though, is we do find a ton of spots to where we get a stun during the opponent's attack token. They get cursed up on their big unit. then we get to open attack the next turn because they don't have enough time or enough mana to remove the curse. A very interesting and powerful play to make its way into this style of deck. Also useful in the sense that Bandle City is extremely bad at dealing with big units, right? We have things like Pie Toss, we have things like Pokey Stick and Eternal, Group Shot still running around. There's Drop the Bomb to deal 2 damage. There's a bunch of ways to deal 1 and 2 points of damage, but not anything in particular to deal with a big unit. Dark Binding handles that fantastically, being able to handle a unit of any size. The other big addition in here is the Black Shield. Fantastic card in terms of protecting a Zolani, protecting a Yordle Captain, protecting a unit in the middle of combat. Very powerful spell out in that space. This is a card I wasn't quite certain if was going to make its way into standard. We haven't been playing a ton of Black Shield out here. It was very interesting though, in the sense that if you compare it to say Bastion, or you compare it to the equipment based spell shield kind of card, they all cost 4 mana or 2 mana split apart. I wasn't quite certain if anything was going to get usurped by the Black Shield, if you will, but I've been quite happy with this. One of the interesting things you can do with not only our curses, right, cursing ourselves with the Black Shield, but the opposing curses, is kind of tie them in with the Winding Light. One of the problems this deck used to run into in the past is you would get to turn 7, and you didn't have a ton of ways to actually activate the Nightfall and get the Winding Light going immediately. You typically want a burst speed spell to get the Winding Light down so it doesn't take multiple actions to get your attack going. And you could really only do that with the Yordle Squire. But interestingly enough now, if we generate our own curse, if we curse ourselves, we can just cast the curse as the Nightfall card for the Winding Light. And it also ties into the opposing curses as well, giving us an interesting way to activate that Nightfall. It's a very interesting concept that's come out of this new set, making it a little bit easier for us to Nightfall without actually playing any Nightfall cards. But nonetheless, that is the deck. That's what we're doing battle with today. Before the battles begin, you know what we got to do. We got to come out and pay that pay-to-win price. And where is that Black Shield? Here you go, my friend. Not only are you going to be premium, but the shackles coming into our hand premium as well. Excuse me, quite the deal we're getting there. And so let's go ahead and jump on in. I feel like with my voice, I might be able to churn out about 3 games or so. We typically try to go for about an hour, but I'm still recovering. It's taken quite a while to get over this cold. It's just been a big pain in the dick. It's like I don't know what would be worse, if you'd rather just like have the flu hardcore for like 3 days, or just have this like lingering sinus infection for fucking 3 weeks. I don't know what the deal is, but I'm trying my best. I'm trying my best out here. But all right, game 1 up against Karma Sett. Just going to look to try and get on board as fast as we can. The only real interactive thing they have in the early game would be something like Avalanche, and I tend to just not play around it. We do have some openings that can play around it well. Like say we go Yordle Squire into the 2/3 Yordle into Bandle City Mayor. Very powerful way to get around Avalanche, but that hasn't turned up here, and we're still just going to play on curve and be as aggressive as we can. All right, Conchologist, what you got for us? Not, excuse me, not a particularly strong set of cards. Drop the Bomb doesn't really kill anything in Karma Sett. Like he's not even playing PNZ. I was going to say, you could consider Divergent Paths against PNZ, not here. I guess we can take Fey Aid. Like, we might get a second Fey in hand at some point, but probably not going to happen. All right. Oof. Let's see. Still a pretty reasonable start, especially if he comes in and drops his ramp on this turn, right? If he comes in and plays a ramp spell, we get the opportunity, especially now with Teemo turning up, to where we can Bandle City Mayor, then play Teemo for free and really kind of jump off that way. Still kind of interesting here, though. He could play something like an Avalanche next turn. I don't want to get completely obliterated by it, but I typically in this match would just prefer to get as much stuff on board as we can. So we'll see how it goes. Bandle City Mayor is still a safe play here. If he does have the Avalanche, he's not going to die to it, and then we are able to follow up with the Weapon Master we took on the turn before.
Oh wow, his mustachine
So we'll see what happens if he plays a Sett or if he plays Avalanche. Oh, Winter's Touch is not quite what you're looking for here. Let's see. Let's just go ahead and boost up the Teemo at this point, I think. He is the best target for like a flash freeze or something, but he's tapped down so low. And now we got the scout attacks rolling through. Good stuff. Come out here and draw some cards for us, my friend. Alright, he's gonna have something big this next turn. It's just gonna be done, right? Sett's not looking too happy about this.
Ain't no fight I can't
won't Sett. They're gonna just drop the Dark Binding and call it a day.
I saw you looking at me.
Alright, not bad, not bad. So it is a pretty reasonable question on this upcoming turn as to whether or not we want to open attack or not. I'm pretty certain we do. Like, the card to worry about here is going to be, you know, Avalanche or Wings of the Cryo Phoenix, whatever dumb removal they're playing at this point. And I think it's probably just going to be safer to go ahead and send in the team. Like, we realistically, if we get in for 2 points of damage, we still have all of the puff caps in the deck. We can still come in, generate the pastry, send some damage to face. Like, just getting in 2 damage should be enough to end the game, but we're probably just going to win outright anyways. Hi, GG.
Never underestimate the power of the Scout's code.
Alright, we won. We can just quit now, right? I have been playing a fair amount over the hiatus. It's like I was really wanting to come in and grind quite a bit, but it's tough how much you can do. Like I was don't want to just sit around and think a whole lot. I know we don't do that too much as we play anyways, but I've just been playing a lot of teamfight tactics as kind of a background noise kind of thing happening, and so we've been playing a little bit, as much as I can. Alright, so what was this? Morgana Ashe. I haven't run up against this yet. Not entirely certain what's about to come at us, but a reasonable start nonetheless. So hang on to both the Bandle Commando. Generating units is pretty decent here, and then the Conchologist is a fine turn 2 play if we feel like we need to block on turn 2.
I'll scout ahead. Doesn't mean everything.
But typically in the ideal sense we'll be getting the Commando down on turn 2, attacking with it, and then the Bandle City Mayor can come in as a way to play that little bird for free. Right? Omen Hawk's annoying. Didn't quite find a good answer here. We didn't get like a Poison Dart, whatever the Teemo spell is called, but the Sunblessed Vigor can at least let us attack through the bird. Not a particularly good attack, though. I don't like spending 2 mana just to get the Omen Hawk off the board. We lose quite a bit of tempo going that way. Let's see. Let's just go with the Mayor. I'm going to say it'll be interesting to see if anybody comes up that we can immediately play. I think I'm fine with taking the Proto-Poro here. There's not a ton of early plays to come out of the opposing deck on this turn. Was not quite expecting Lisa and Dolly's, but it is what it is. Alright, now Ashe rolls through. Not a big deal. So what you got for us, Conchologist? The only reasonable one out of here looks like the Shield Vault. I don't think we're going to play it like this turn, but coming up next turn it could be pretty reasonable. Now with Kayle available next turn, I don't think we want to lose any units at this point. I would say, like, what's going to happen here the majority of the time is we're just going to play Kayle and then she's going to get popped by Morgana. But we don't have a ton of choice in the matter. We really need some unit boosting to be happening here. Paparo is actually a pretty interesting choice in this space. Like he does potentially just get popped by Morgana, but I feel like if he's got Morgana, we're probably just losing this game anyways. But I think the attack with him is much stronger. So rotate the Yordle. To binding. Okay. Can live with that. So let's take this attack here. We'll weaken up the Lisa and Dolly. Give Teemo the boost so he doesn't just trade with the Omen Hawk. And then we have a pretty good attack after that.
You never know what hit him.
These are our lands.
And no Morgana. That was the big deal, right? And a Saurion, sure thing. So we'll add in the Kayle. Now if he attacks with the Ashe, it's gonna flash freeze Kayle. We should have some pretty decent blocks, at least onto the Ashe. He's definitely got a flash freeze here. Nothing we can do about that. But he's pretty far away from lethal at this point. There is some argument to come in and try and block this Lisa and Dolly. But I think we're safe enough. Alright, so the attacks this turn are at least kind of decent, and then we do have some follow-up in terms of what we can hit with after combat. Right. Yeah, Paparo makes these Yordles not suck. Appreciate it, friend.
Leave us alone.
So Kayle's gonna be fine here, right? If he had a flash freeze, he would flash freeze Kayle and block her with the Saurion. Not bad. We do still have to worry about getting KO'd by this Saurion, I guess. He's going to have a pretty healthy life total. Probably need to add in the Yordle just as the biggest blocker that we have.
That's why I always carry another pair of goggles.
But losing Kayle this turn's not that big of a deal. We have a secondary Kayle if we need, and like realistically, things this turn are going to come down to using the Winding Light. We just dead now? I think so. I thought this only put 4 mana worth of curses. 8 mana of curses is a pretty big deal. Alright, GG. Maybe we should have played that a little less aggressively, right? We could have blocked a non-overwhelming unit a little bit earlier in the game and then just tried to flood the board. Probably could have gotten pretty far with that as well, given that we could generate so many more units with Bandle City Mayor kind of cards. We had a Yordle generator in hand as well. But it's the first time I've played that match. I really had no idea what we were going to be running into. I did have these kind of ideas with Morgana as to where she'd be kind of interesting with units like Ice Veil Archer, as to where Ice Veil Archer comes down and it counts as a target, so you weren't spending an actual card to get the target. But just using the doubles has been so much more powerful. I've been trying so hard to use cards like Transfusion with Morgana, but I just haven't quite found the deck to make it happen in yet. But alright, yeah, again, this is going to be our final battle. We typically try and get about an hour's worth of games in, but my voice is already starting to go, I can tell. it takes a while to build up the streamer voice to be able to talk for an hour and a half straight. I just don't quite have it in me. Alright, reasonable enough start though. This Broadwing's probably not attacking in this turn. I think we might be able to... It's like, do we want to safely get this Bandle Commando? I'd really like to have 2 mana coming into next turn so that we can play Pale Cascade. But like, how important do we think it is to block this Broadwing with an Owlcat? It's probably not that big of a deal.
You best believe I don't play.
Just, it's, I was gonna say, it's pretty hard to actually have the Petricite Hound here. He's got it. It's not that big of a deal losing out on these units, though.
Well, farting.
Then no need for Paparo here, right? He's like, his big plays this turn would be something like Balin. The annoying play is if he comes in with the suppression guy, but he's at least manageable. Alright, ooh, you want to take that Cosmic Call, huh? It's very tempting to just take the second Morning Light. It's so good within this deck, just giving all of our units +1/+1 for the turn. And we do have other black shields. It's like, I don't suspect there's going to be a ton of like strikes coming out of this deck, right? It probably only plays the 3 copies of the +2 health strike. What? Are we ever going to cast 2 Morning Lights in the same turn? Probably not.
Take a peek at life beneath
Something to build to, though. We should probably be attacking here. Just like, if he's got Balin, it hurts so much, but we do have a Dark Binding to potentially stop Balin.
I have found such beauty in mortality.
Alright, getting access to Conchologist, not that big of a deal. The problem here this turn is we don't actually have a kill for Morgana. We can take her down next turn, but not this turn. See what Conchologist turns up. There we go, there's a Heroic Refrain. He does still have 3 mana at this point, so we do have a lot of potential for bummers here, right? If he's got Shield of Durand for the Morgana, this is going to be a bad turn. But Heroic Refrain's definitely going to be good.
Easy does it.
Alright, let's see if he's got it. Does. So we don't have hushes or anything. There's no real reason to Pale Cascade. Just have to let this fall. We can still get a pretty reasonable board together next turn, though. Got Paparo to generate a unit with the Owlcat. Or Bandle Commandos as well. We can try and go big with Paparo if we want, right? Like, we can play Bandle Commando, we can play Paparo, and then Dark Binding, whatever blocks Paparo. Or if he blocks with one of these smaller Formidables, we can steal Pale Cascade. I think I'm on board with that. Just say take all the Bandle Commandos, huh? I'm not opposed to it. I mean, they're going to be growing this turn off the Paparo, and then we do still have the we do still have the Morning Light in hand. Yeah, this shit's getting annoying. We are at least getting to the point of the game to where the shields aren't unreasonable to build out of, right? We're gonna quickly be to the point where we just can't spend our mana anyways.
Serving lead.
So hopefully within a turn or two we can pop these back off. Morgana's pretty far away from flipping though, only at 4 of 8. Okay. That's gonna do it. We can't grow out of this. Just too much power on the other side of the board compared to what we drew. So, not bad. GG. So yeah, we'll call it there. We didn't quite turn into the matches that you're typically expecting in this space, but I think it was a pretty good start. I think that was, you know, a pretty winnable matchup there at the end as well. Up against Formidables, kind of one of those things to where the interaction that they drew lined up with our interaction pretty well. But nonetheless, a reasonable deck in Kayle Teemo. It's one of these things that I am pretty interested in playing as the Open does rapidly approach. Again, it does all of those things that we're really looking for decks to do. I think we at least hit off on a lot of the power that you get out of having stuff like this now, in the sense of having the unit growth with the Winding Lights and the Yordle Captains and the Zolanis and everything. At no point was there a space to where opponent was going to kill one of our kind of engine style units and then us just be like, oh fuck, that's going to end the game. And so it plays quite nicely in that sense. We just ran into a bit too much power there. Maybe in that last game we would have been okay if we just played the Pale Cascade and then attacked with Paparo, but man, trading him out for a Petricite Hound doesn't feel very good. But nonetheless, good set of games. I had fun with that. I hope you did too, because that is going to do it for us today. So hope everyone enjoyed the video. Maybe learned a thing or two along the way. Had a good time watching. This is Bustin' Me. Thank you for being here.